number 1, Alamanamu, as I was saying, perhaps the main hope of keeping the prize here in England with Willie Carson, and for a change, perhaps looking a little bit pensive, but when you think he's got a big task on his hands here, knowing exactly when to produce Alamanamu, because he likes to come with a late run. Alamanamu 11-4, second favourite at the moment, and Willie won this race last year on the Great Troy. A really good-looking horse last year, trained down at Pulborough by Guy Harwood, and Guy did a really wonderful job with this colt. He nursed him, turned him into one of the best propositions in England, and the owner couldn't refuse the offer that was made for him, so he changed stables, and since joining Major Dick Hearn's stable at East Ilsley, he's unbeaten so far this season. Walking round is a Pellerin with John Reed in the saddle. John Reed won this race with Ile de Bourbon in 1978. Pellerin running in blinkers, trained at Newmarket by Harry Ragg. John Reed bid in for his 53rd win of the year. He's trained, as I say, by Harry Ragg at Newmarket. He's by Sir Gaylord out of a St Paddy mare, and he's 33-1 at the moment. And there, going in to his stall, number 11 is Lamamo, with Philip Packey bid in for his first King George and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes winner, and I think should take all the beating today. That's the view that the viewers are getting here at Ascot. Willie, nice, a little pat down the neck. Well, there's Leicester on Mrs. Penny, and for this, the 30th running of the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes, and the richest ever run. Let's join Peter O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Jimmy. This is Dunet, the French Oaks winner of 79, and Georges Doleurs having his first ride in the Ascot race. Turnavos and Edward Hyde. Next in, the Irish Sweeps Derby winner. This race has united 16 Derby winners in 3 countries in its first 29 runnings. This is Mrs. Penny, the recent French Oaks winner, and Lester Piggott, bidding for his 7th King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes. Majestic Maharaj, hooded, goes towards his stall. 2-1 Lamamo, 11-4 Alamanamu, the latest betting, 7 Bar. Here's Gregorian now and Tommy Murphy, and he'll be the last in, the last of the 10 runners to be installed. The white flag raised. They're under starters' orders, and they're away. And Turnavos is the first to show. Turnavos and Edward Hyde setting off to make it, being chased by Lamamo on the inside of Gregorian. Then comes More Light. On the outside of More Light is Alamanamu, and then Mrs. Penny and Majestic Maharaj, Dunet and Pellerin, and More Light's the back marker, and Turnavos trying to make it as he did in the Irish Sweeps Derby. Turnavos in the lead from More Light going up a clear second now, then Lamamo and Gregorian and Majestic Maharaj closely grouped, then Alamanamu. Then comes Mrs. Penny and Dunet on the rail, and then More Light, and Pellerin has now been relegated to last as they race down into Swindley Bottom, with little now between Turnavos and More Light. Turnavos on the inside of More Light. Just in behind them, Majestic Maharaj, Lamamo on the rail. In behind them, Gregorian. Then comes Dunet and Alamanamu. They're passing the mile marker now. Behind Alamanamu is Mrs. Penny, and then comes Main Reef. Behind Main Reef is Pellerin, and they're racing towards the 7 marker now, and it's Turnavos in the lead from More Light. Then Lamamo on the inside, Gregorian and Majestic Maharaj. Behind them, Alamanamu and Dunet, and then Mrs. Penny and Main Reef and Pellerin as they race towards the 6 mark in the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes, and it's still Turnavos from More Light, little between the 2. Just in behind them come Majestic Maharaj, and then Lamamo making progress now towards the outside is Alamanamu, with Gregorian holding his position. Main Reef has improved as well. They're racing towards the 5 furlong mark, just passing it now, and it's still Turnavos, More Light, Willie Carson making a swift forward move now on Alamanamu. Main Reef gone there to join him too. Lamamo comes next. In behind Lamamo, Mrs. Penny making a run towards the outside, racing towards the home turn now with under half a mile to run in the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes, and it's Alamanamu and Willie Carson who just hit the front. Alamanamu from More Light and Turnavos. Mrs. Penny coming there strongly. Lamamo's dropped right out of it. They're racing round the home turn now, and it's More Light and Alamanamu, the stable companions. Then Turnavos, then Mrs. Mrs. Penny, breathing menacingly just in behind them. Then comes Main Reef, but Willie Carson has struck the front on Elamanamu. And it's Willie Carson and Elamanamu from Lester Piggott on Mrs. Penny. Gregorian making progress over on the far rail. Then comes Dunet on the outside, and Lamamo making a great run now towards the stand side. But it's Elamanamu from Mrs. Penny. There's little between the two. Willie Carson and Lester Piggott as they race into the closing stages. It's Lester on the near side, Willie Carson on the far side, Elamanamu and Mrs. Penny. Elamanamu's just stretching clear now as they come to the line to win it. Elamanamu's won it from Mrs. Penny's second, Gregorian third, Dunet 4, Lamamo 5, behind them Majestic Maharaja, Main Reef and Turnabos and Pellerin. Last was More Light, and so the result of the 1980 King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes is first number 1, Elamanamu, owned by Mr. Simon Weinstock, trained by Major Dick Hearn and ridden by Willie Carson. Second was number 12, Mrs. Penny, owned by Mr. Ian Cronfeld, trained by Ian Balding and ridden by Lester Piggott. Third was number 2, Gregorian, owned by Mr. Daniel Schwartz, trained by Vincent O'Brien and ridden by Tommy Murphy. And fourth was number 9, Dunet. That was the 1, 2, 3, 4 in the King George. Let's see the closing stages again with Julian Wilson.
A marvellous race, and it was all down to stamina in the end, and Elamanamu was the horse who stayed. Willie Carson's made his move fully half a mile out, and he's hit the front well over 2 furlongs out. But at this point, Lester Piggott's cruised up to him on Mrs. Penny, looked over his left shoulder for danger, and it looked as if it was just a question of Lester pushing the button when he wanted to go. But Elamanamu has battled on. Lester hasn't wanted to go too soon because of his doubts about the filly getting the trip, and also because she doesn't want to be in front too long. Dunet's coming well on the outside, Gregorian's well there on the far rails, Main Reef just dropping out there with More Light. But now it becomes a neck-and-neck battle with Carson and Piggott riding at their very strongest. And the filly, although she's run a marvellous race, has just run out of stamina at this point with just 100 yards to go. And Elamanamu, fighting away and pushing his mount right out to the line, finds that he's won his second successive King George with Mrs. Penny a heroic second.
So what a great double for Dick Hearn. Won it in 1979 with Troy, won it first in 1972 with the Brigadier Gerard, and what a double for Willie Carson. In absolutely irresistible form, this duo. Willie Carson's 7th ride in this great Ascot prize and his second success. Unbeaten this season, Elamanamu, in whom the Irish breeder Tim Rogers has a 33% share. And he got a much far better run with this one than his 50% share in Lamamo, who dropped out approaching the home turn, came there threatening for a few strides in the straight, but didn't sustain his run. The 11-4 second favourite, Elamanamu, formerly owned by Max Muinas, who bought him at a bargain basement price and for whom he did immensely well, and whom he sold at the end of his 3-year-old career to his new connections, for whom he's now won all his 4 races. The official margin, 3/4 of a length and 5 lengths. That's Tim Rogers there giving a grateful pat to this colt by Pitcairn, outstandingly Pitcairn's best ever produce out of Rose Bertin. A fine run by Mrs. Penny, beaten 3/4 of a length. This filly made a gallant bid to sustain the fine records of mares in this race, in which English trainers have now won 16, French 8, Irish 5, Italy 1. And a word too for Gregorian, who also ran a cracking race and proved Lester Piggott's judgment once again. There is Gregorian, Lester having elected to ride Mrs. Penny. But what a fine race Gregorian ran, but no doubt about the best horse here. And there he is, Elamanamu, winner of the 30th running of the richest ever King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes. The starting prices as follows.
First, number 1, Elamanamu, 11-4. Second, number 12, Mrs. Penny, 9 to 1. And third, number 2, Gregorian, 25 to 1.